Hello and welcome to the Nature Unplugged podcast, where we are all about inspiring wellness in the digital age. Let's get going. We're on. Well, hello and welcome to the Nature Unplugged podcast with me, your host, Sebastian Slovin. I am very excited today to have a very good friend, dear friend, Matt Lamkin. Matt, I'll share a little bit about you, but welcome to the pod.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you back. This is round two. So super pumped to have Matt back on. Matt, of course, is a wonderful musician, surfer, nature enthusiast, all around awesome human. And Matt just released his latest album, Dirty Job, which is the second of your solo career. Is that right?
Correct.
Second of the solo career. And I think, so in addition to talking about the new album, we're going to explore the role nature plays in his creative process and how both nature and music can play a positive role in our mental health. I'm really excited. So Matt, welcome. It's good to have you.
It's good to be back.
Man, it's been a while since you've been on the podcast. I checked the records and you were on episode 15, which is, and this is 62. We're just rolling right along.
Yeah. When was that? That was in August of 2019?
Yeah, a couple of years, I think. Maybe it's been 2019. Yeah, 2019.
August 2019.
Anyway, we'll have to, we'll keep this a regular, every 2 years we'll have you back.
Okay. I'll do
this is great. Yeah. Well, now we go way back, but I just want to, some of the listeners probably heard that other podcast, but just for people that don't know you, can you share a little bit about your background, when it comes to music and, anything else you want to share about your background?
Yeah. So, first of all, Seb and I grew up together, boogie boarding, riding waves, in our early teens. And Seb obviously continued on with surfing, and I went into music and got into kind of, I was in like touring rock bands. I was in a band called the Soft Pack and ended up touring US, Europe, Australia, and stuff like that.
Great band. Check him out, Soft Pack.
Is it still the theme music?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Yeah, we can do music, yeah.
Well, I'm saying it's the theme music, right? Or is it not?
Oh, it is. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. That's a good point. You all know Matt Lamkin's music and the Soft Pack's music because it's the theme. We use the song Mexico.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, and so that was a good, I don't know, almost 10 years of my life was touring and stuff. And I kind of figured I needed to kind of like settle into a spot, and I kind of just found myself wanting to be somewhere where I could kind of just be more in touch with nature, more time in the ocean, more time out in the hills hiking, and ended up down in Baja in Ensenada. And so, yeah, for the last 10 years, I've been down here and not taking such a career minded approach to music, but more even just kind of like an outlet, creative outlet, and spending more time outdoors, hiking and surfing.
Yeah. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, we touched upon this, I think, when we spoke last, but I really admire how you were, and I think you mentioned you were touring. You guys were hardcore. You were like, you were on Letterman, all the big festivals, doing the full on rock star music lifestyle based out of Los Angeles, right?
Yep.
And I can imagine it's a pretty hectic, it's probably really fun, but also pretty, sort of intense and hectic lifestyle. So I really admire how you and your longtime partner, Claire, kind of bounced out of LA, went down to Mexico, and have, as you said, kind of locked into this more, like a slower pace of life and a sort of lifestyle that you can still make music, you can still do all these things, and you can be more connected to nature, be more connected to yourself, and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the main draw, being down here, having the space and the slower pace.
Yeah. You got
So
roosters. I hear the rooster.
you can hear them. I was gonna say
These guys are lagging. Isn't it a little
they
late?
start early too. You know, they get
Oh, they
up.
start early. They just
They
keep
start at
going.
like 4, and then they keep going. So they're not on any sunrise schedule. These guys.
Okay. Okay. Freestyle roosters.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, that's good to know. Matt, dude, congratulations on the new album. I know we were talking as you were working on it. I know it's a huge, I don't know from personal experience, but I know it's a big undertaking to do that. I imagine, especially solo, you're in charge of all the things. So let's talk about this, the new album, Dirty Job. So when did this officially come out?
So yeah, it was released last week, last Friday.
Last week.
So a
Whoa.
week ago today.
1 week.
It's a week fresh.
1 week anniversary.
Yeah, here we are celebrating. I'm gonna be celebrating every week, every Friday from here on out. No, yeah, it was Claire's idea. You mentioned Claire, my partner. During the pandemic, she was like, you got to just put something out, like, artists were kind of just releasing stuff because there was this weird moment of like no live shows and,
Right.
no concerts. So like a lot of releases were like, people were like not putting releases out because you couldn't play shows to promote, yada, yada. Then it kind of became this therapeutic thing. Everyone was locked in their house. Like, so artists started kind of like disseminating music to kind of like, as a way of kind of communicating and sharing, connecting. And Claire encouraged me to do that. And I was like, okay, let me see, and started digging around and stuff I had worked on that I didn't kind of like take seriously. And I was like, well, maybe this is good. And then I realized like, oh wait, this is all pretty cool. So there's a lot of stuff from the archives that I was going to just kind of release as like, hey, here's like some odds and ends that I've had lying around.
Mm-hmm.
And then I teamed up with our friend Andrew Miller.
Yes, Andrew Miller. Yeah.
The producer of the album. And so once the original idea was he was just going to kind of clean that stuff up,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that was lying around on my computer. And then once we started that, we started getting into more blah, 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 like adding stuff. And then we started recording new songs. So then it's kind of a mix. And that was kind of long distance stuff. So it is, in a way, like a COVID kind of pandemic album, which
Right.
was like, going to be just kind of like a way to like reach out. And then it gathered steam, and I had a bunch of people like, like via email and stuff, and adding and recording, home recording. So like there's drums from some guy in LA played drums.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember his name right now. Damar
Okay.
Hamilton. Damar Hamilton played drums. So he was
Demar.
at his home studio recording drums.
Ah.
And then our good friend Sam Setzer plays lead guitar, and he
Okay.
emails us. And Andrew and I were doing a lot of stuff via email. He's there. Those guys are in LA, but all live separate. So it was kind of like that, it was like a way of like, we were all in the quarantine or whatever, and sending tracks and building this album. And then finally, I got to hang out with Andrew, and we kind of just like, tied the bow around the whole thing and gave it to our friend Richard Houghton.
Mm-hmm.
He's also in LA, and he, mastered the thing, which is kind of like the final process of getting it like kind of print ready or whatever. So yeah, it became like half old stuff, odds and ends, and then half a new batch of stuff recorded in under the strange circumstances that we were in 2020.
Yeah.
And 2021. And I had a bunch of friends helping me out with stuff. So between their like work, it took a little longer as they were throwing little time at it when they could.
Right.
But yeah, it finally came together, and it's all good. And thanks to Claire, she's kind of like the executive producer of the project. Andrew,
Yeah. Project manager.
The music producer. Yeah, she's like the project manager.
Executive producer sounds better though. I like that.
Yeah. Project manager. On-site
Well,
manager.
Yeah, and it's important to note that Claire she has a cameo. Is that the term? She's a cameo in a song on the album, which is really cool. So I was excited. I was like, who is that?
Yeah, so Claire, not only is it her debut as a performer on an album, but she also co-wrote that song. So it's her
she did.
Songwriter, performer, singer, and producer even. So this is a big one for Claire.
That's a triple. Yeah, triple whammy.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. It's cool to hear the story. That's like the Postal Service, right? Is that kind of remember the Postal Service? Is that their deal? They like before all this, they would like, everyone was separate and they'd send it around, but it's it's really cool how it came together. And I think I just got to
Were
say
they
that
actually
I've
snail mail? Sorry to
what's that?
interrupt. Were they actually doing it via snail mail, or was that's
I
what
don't
old
I don't
US?
know. I think it was
Or
like I think it was pretty old. I mean, I don't know if it was snail
crap.
mail, but like sending USB, I don't know, drives or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We got to
That's
look into
cool.
that. We got to fact check it. But I got to say, Matt, I've listened to it a few times now. I really love it, and I'm proud of you, and I'm pumped that it's that you did it, and that was that had Claire had the idea to put it out there. So it's really cool. Do you have any? Well, I was going to ask you. I imagine the answer to this was like with COVID and the challenges, but was there any particular inspiration aside from Claire just being like, you got to do something?
Well, yeah, a lot of the stuff that kind of came out is a little zanier than my usual kind of stuff, and it's got that kind of like, there's vocal performances that I do in there, and they'll be kind of wild and weird compared to my normal stuff. And that's because we were locked up. Like I'm just freaking out in my house. In fact, there's a song called "Hot House in Hell" that's just
I
like,
love that one. It's one of my top. It's my top three for sure. Yeah, keep going.
that's like a pandemic anthem. I wouldn't say it's an anthem, but it's like it's just the feeling of being locked up is just going off the rails a little bit. But
Yeah,
it's a way to channel that, and it felt good to be able to like use that energy and almost like go with it and amplify it, and use it as an energy to channel and find something creative with it and blow off steam, but also like see where you can take it.
yeah, it's really amazing, and I think that's a good term, zany, to describe it, because it is like your other stuff. Traditionally, I think has been more. I don't. I'm not going to even try to be like a music connoisseur and know what I'm talking about with this, but just more like mainstreamish, I guess. So like,
Hmm.
um, and
Like
this is
rock
like
music or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah, and this is you're getting. It has like the roots, and then you're getting also just like pushing the limits, getting a little more out there, which I really appreciated, and I think it's really cool. We've had a lot of conversations over the years and throughout the pandemic, but we're both, I mean, with Nature Unplugged, we're huge proponents of uh, like preventative mental health work. So you're not in crisis mode when you're seeking out mental health. That's why we're really into getting outside into nature and all this stuff. And it seems like for you, this is a music and creativity is a way to channel that, as you said. And can you talk a little bit more about how this process was, or like how creating music, and I guess this album in particular, is on your mental health?
Yeah, you were saying earlier, like the preventative kind of way of things. It's not like in an emergency situation, I don't start writing songs. but
Right.
uh, but yeah, and so in the past, you know, normally, or I guess with the previous bands, the rock bands and whatnot, you kind of go and you have a group of people kind of generating the sound and the atmosphere to kind of like be creative and let it all out. And this one was different, being that it was a pandemic situation, so I had to kind of generate the space. And I don't know, there was something more about like it was like a heavier load to lift in a way, to kind of like, or it felt like that, because I had to kind of like set it up myself, and there's no one like generating sound with you and generating like a vibe.
Right.
Then I
Yeah, yeah.
just like kind of almost just like letting it all out. It was almost just like letting out whatever kind of anxiety or whatever, in it alone in a situation. And so that's kind of like a different thing. But I find that in any way, music has always been like that for me. I was saying in the previous band, in the soft pack, we would be like a good place to go and kind of play some live music and blow off steam. And when we would take breaks, say we would go 2 weeks without a band practice, I would start to feel a little more like bottled up or something. I'm like, what's going on? And then I realized, oh, haven't gone to band practice and like screamed into a microphone for 3 hours every day for 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and that's various reasons, living in LA, being stressed out, and that's when music was a career for me. So there's a little more pressure in that. This situation is a lot more different. I can kind of treat it as an outlet. There's not so much pressure on. It's not so goal oriented. and I can
Right.
kind of just like, luckily, and what I enjoy now is like being able to just let myself see what comes out, and just kind of like, it's kind of a process of letting go and just letting everything come out and letting it be whatever it is, which is
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
fun, and also in a way, in a different way, therapeutic, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that comes across in the album where it sounds therapeutic, to listen to, uh, and it's just such a cool outlet. I was, as you were saying that, I was thinking about this, way back in the day when I did my first yoga teacher training. We had this kind of guest instructor come in, and he was like handicapped, like physically, he couldn't do like the yoga moves, but his whole thing was about like chanting. And he had like all this science and research on the like physiological changes that happen when you chant or sing. And that like from his perspective, he also like it kept him in physical shape. That was like his routine. Was he couldn't really walk around and stuff, but he would just chant, have a morning chant session, and he'd be like fit from chanting. So
That's
just
well,
remember.
this might be a good time to bring up the challenge. It's kind
Okay,
of
yeah, let's talk. Yeah. We talked about that before. Every week we like to challenge our listeners with something awesome, nature unplugged related, and I think Matt came up with it's a wonderful challenge. Yeah, let's talk about it.
something I do that's really in step with what your yoga instructor would do is like, when you're feeling, or it doesn't you don't have to be feeling anything specific, but just kind of like chanting or finding a tone, or like kind of like Om, people would be familiar with probably, but like it can be any frequency or tone that you're feeling, and kind of asking yourself like, at what frequency am I operating right now? And if you're feeling kind of nervous, it could be like higher, buzzier, or if you're
Yeah, yeah,
like a lower kind of tone. And I find that if I'm feeling flustered or confused or anxious or something, or even it could be anything, sad, whatever, and you just kind of, I find it's a good way to get in touch with your feelings and where you are, and kind of like just let a tone come out. I find it easier to kind of identify and identify what I'm feeling and reconnect and kind of recenter myself.
totally. Yes, it's a way to get in touch with your emotions at the time, and reconnect with your body. Maybe if you're feeling towards like disconnected for any reason.
Yeah, like in the kind of in the opposite of, say, like with meditation or something where they would have an Om, it's like you're kind of like putting that frequency out there to kind of arrive at that frequency.
Right, right.
This would be like seeing what frequency is coming out of you
Where are you at?
to find where you are.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be anything. It could be singing any song like Peanut Butter and Jelly, or it can be like or just a tone, or a
Yeah,
chant, like whatever comes out of you, just let it rip, and then it kind of is a fun. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be screaming from the mountaintops. Like I'll do it when I'm surfing and paddling. I'll just be like, and you're like, okay, so I'm operating at like a high buzz here, or whatever it is.
this is a medium high buzz. Yeah, it's so funny actually. We haven't really talked about this before now, but we do quite a few surf adventures together. I'll come down from San Diego to Baja, and we go on these little surf trips, and it's an awesome time, getting good waves. But I do notice, I don't know if I was fully aware of it, but oftentimes when we're out surfing and we talk and we hang out and we catch waves, but then there's inevitably some point or portion of the section where we're not really talking, we're just making sort of different tone sounds. It's like or depending on what's happening, just
Yeah, yeah, no, it's great how nonverbal it can be when you're in that space. I love that. I was just talking to Claire about that, how like, what was it? We were just talking about a couple of days ago, and that like, I was like, yeah, that kind of happens. I guess I was talking about like how being in the ocean can be kind of like an abstract setting,
right.
and that I'll be out, you and I will be out, or people, if you're comfortable with them, you'll be out there and you won't even be, it'll be nonverbal. You're out in this kind of like otherworldly setting in the ocean, and your words aren't really useful. It's like you start like hooting and hollering and like, like, and it's about like the excitement and the energy that you have, and it's not it's not so intense even, like you said. It could just be like, I don't know, it's just a funny place to take yourself in a lot of
Yeah.
places you go.
And I feel like, it's almost, I go like sort of hunter gatherer kind of mindset with it. It's like some ancient, you know, it's almost feels like, ancient ritual type connection with the earth that we undertake when we're doing our surf chanting.
Absolutely. It's like you're also really you're reading the 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 ocean, and like you
Right.
said, after gathering, it's like training your eyes to spot the berries or mushrooms or whatever you're looking for. It's like training your eyes to see where the waves are going, and it definitely has a different ancient kind of, you know
Yeah. Feel for it.
evolutionary place. Yeah, that we're going
Yeah. I'm curious to hear, we talked about this a little bit before, but I'm curious to hear also how your relationship with nature plays a role in I guess in both the creative process and from like a mental health perspective.
Yeah. Well, basically, engaging with nature can generally requires a little bit of activity, right? So a little
Yeah, that's
physical
true.
activity is
That's true.
always for the base level, you know, walking out to the hills, paddling around, surfing. And then I find that it's kind of obviously really helpful to kind of like, unplug, right? So when you're out there doing that, you're not required to use your phone. You're not required to, and it's more enjoyable when you don't anyway. So those two things are really important. And last time we talked a lot about the element of play.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think for me, most importantly, it's about kind of like disconnecting from the context of like the daily life and the chores, the requirements, the jobs, the expectations, yada 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 yada. That's like,
Yeah.
you know like nature doesn't have any requirements or expectations or anything like that, and you're out there and just engaging and reconnecting and with nature. And so I find that that's a great reset and also a good baseline to maintain. Kind of the goal for me is like let that be the baseline, and then like the emails and stuff be like periphery things that I have
Right.
to do, but then I can come back to the baseline.
Right.
So that's for me super helpful in terms of just kind of like you say preventative stuff. It's like, but I guess in heavy situations, it's probably good to take a walk outside and get some fresh air too.
True. True.
But yeah, I find that like doing that just in general is important, because in the end all this stuff's imaginary, right? Like the concept of money, the concept of real estate, concept of capitalism, or whatever. It's like they're all just made up,
Right.
and you can get so locked into it that you don't have to, you forget that you don't have to bring it with you everywhere you go. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
at the forefront of your mind everywhere you go.
Yeah. I love that too about making sort of that state of being connected with nature as more of a baseline than I think for many people it's like a short escape from the reality of like constant emails or phone calls or chores or to-do lists or things like that. And I think that what's really cool about you and Claire is that um, I'm not saying that right everyone should just leave their jobs and go and you know and but I think what's really cool about you two is that there's different ways to do this, and it doesn't have to be all about like, I think the majority of it can be more like connection and cooking and walking and creativity and things like that. And that's really awesome to see.
Yeah, it's obviously it's not like it's a goal kind of, it's like it's something to aim for, because it's not exactly like something that you can maintain, or it's hard. I mean, sure,
Right.
there's people that can, but like I guess to speak to that, it's like, yeah, it's not like leave your jobs and become like, a monk and just live in the hills. It's kind of like trying to incorporate that as more of a foundational part of your life, as opposed to like, like you said, being an afternoon walk one day a week or something. Just
Right.
kind of try and keep that as part of your daily routine. And yeah, I mean, obviously there's the things of like of work and balance and what works for us, like Claire does gardening and landscaping for work because she likes being in outdoors and with plants. So
Yeah.
incorporating that into her work, and I'm an aspiring pro surfer someday. I'll probably be a pro surfer, I'm thinking. So
I think I feel bad that I didn't mention this earlier, but I do have to say, in all seriousness, that you're an awesome musician and an awesome surfer. I think that's not out of reach, man. You can be a.
well, no, yeah, I was
We're gonna
totally
hit.
joking about being
I
a pro
think
surfer, but
you got to reach for the stars, man. We're gonna
yeah,
send this to. You're doing a surf contest tomorrow. For
that's
crying
cool.
out loud.
So that's a fun one. Do it, yeah. Speaking of, so yeah. In all seriousness, no, I don't think I am going to be a pro surfer, get paid to surf. However, something in the world of surf where that's kind of part of the line of work. I don't know. I'm not like a life coach here. But yes, I'm doing a contest tomorrow, which is also kind of to like, it's a longboard contest. I don't even own a longboard, so I think it's all about kind of having that kind of attitude to where it's like, because even in the surf world, right? You went with that. I had that in the early days where like the career and the competition can kind of ruin a beautiful thing for you.
Right.
And I'm really happy with myself that I'm in a place in my life where I can sign up for a longboard contest when I don't even have a longboard and be like, yeah, I'll just borrow a friend's and show up and like and have fun. And you know, as a kind of like being part of a community and meeting people and hanging out, and as opposed to like being dead set on winning some
Right.
prize or something or being competitive. So that's a cool thing. And that's something that I like about like surfing is like kind of circling back to the element of play and how it's fun, and it's a cool thing to do with people. And music's the same way for me too, like that, like just getting together and hanging out with people and playing music. It's like it's kind of feels like a kind of like a cultural kind of experience as opposed to some sort of career minded thing or some sort of it's like more about sharing a split like time and place with people and enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
It's a cool way to have a community.
I love that. And I think that the two also don't have to be not like mutually exclusive, right? You can, I think you're a good example of that too with music. You can not be 100% like, this is all about the end product and like a high pressure, high stake situation, but more really tap into your creativity, tap into what you want to put out there, push your own personal boundaries and put out something that people love. I think you can, and with surfing too, you can have fun and play and do well hypothetically in a contest. We'll
Yeah,
see how it goes
should
tomorrow.
happen to you. Yeah.
But I mean,
I like that.
I think ideally you can, what I really aspire to do, or the people I look up to, are the people who can do those things, hold those two different, the play side and the, I guess, performance side, or, both of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like in personal experience, I had to unlearn kind of that, like, you're like, if you're in surfing, there's like Kelly Slater, and then everyone else is just going down the ranks. And then there's like
Right.
Rolling Stones, and everything is just like down the ranks. So it's like, okay, well, you got to aim to be that or whatever. So kind of unlearning that was like, like you're saying, it's like, there's so much more to it, enjoying it and finding things or whatever it is. There's so much more to life and these experiences than that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I've always felt this way that, you've been a big inspiration in a lot of realms, but it's been a while since I've seen you perform live, but I always felt like when I would watch you perform live, I was like, well, there's someone who is, I'm biased too, but there's someone who's having like an awesome time experientially and putting out something that's really wonderful to listen to. So it felt like, and that was inspiring to me to do that with, whatever I was doing, whether it's writing or whatever, Nature Unplugged stuff or whatever, to kind of bring, bring your full self to it and make sure it's something that you're enjoying. It's
Yeah,
cool to see.
that's the element of like self-care, and I had to learn to kind of enjoy it after a while, because it was just for other, it was like something I had to do,
For
for
a
other
job,
people, essentially, as a job. And then it feels selfish. It gets to a point where you're like, oh, to take care of myself and to do what I want and to enjoy this. I think for a lot of people, and myself included, it was like, that sounds selfish or
right?
something, right? It's like,
Yeah,
it's like, to enjoy your job or whatever it is. It's like, that's like, and maybe generationally, whatever, I don't know, maybe a few generations back, that sounds ridiculous, but having to kind of catch up with that idea for me was like a big thing. It's like, oh, I'm allowed to feel good.
yeah. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't just have to be a grind.
Right.
Whatever the endeavor is. Matt, I guess it's maybe a weird time for this, but any live shows coming up, speaking of that, or is it's not really in the mix right now?
I'm booked in Los Angeles. If any of your listeners are in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah. LA?
I'm opening for our friend David Landsman's band.
Okay. Yes.
Fun Country.
Yeah. Fun Country.
Airliner is the name of the play. I believe it's the 26th of October. I'm going to double check that for you.
Yeah. We can add it. We'll add it to the show notes too.
Okay. Let's just say the 26th of October.
26th. We'll say that.
There's going to be like throngs of people at the airliner on the wrong day if that's the wrong day.
Matt, this is high stakes. No, we'll make sure and have the correct date and time and the details for this live show in late October. That's very exciting. And Matt, where can people find out more about you and your music?
Yeah, Spotify or iTunes or whatever, you can buy it there. Bandcamp is kind of the best way if you're a vinyl fan.
Okay.
You can get it there, or you can buy the MP3s or whatever. But yeah, for streaming, Spotify, Apple Music. It's on all the digital stuff, and that's the best way to find it.
I love it.
It's just the artist name is Matt Lamkin.
Matt Lamkin. Yes. We will include all the details in the show notes, where you can find Matt's stuff, where you can buy his work. And the vinyl thing you were mentioning before we got on the call, you were mentioning of like an upcoming vinyl deal. Is that the Bandcamp one?
Yeah, so this album, it will be, right now you can get the last album, Where I'm At is on Bandcamp. You can get it there. This one's in the works. So there will be, hopefully by the show, the 26th of October, I will have the new vinyls ready to rock.
Dang.
My buddy Derek at Wall Ride Records is going to print up some vinyls. So we're getting on that.
All right, Derek, you better start printing,
Let's get to work.
I'm excited I'm excited. I love the album, Matt. I'm excited. Hopefully I can make it on the 26th or when that show is, but as usual, it's a pleasure to have you on here, and I just appreciate your time. I appreciate what you do and the art and music you put out into the world. And big thanks to Claire too, for, getting you going on that.
Yeah. Keep me on task.
Keeping you on task, Well, thank you all so much for listening to the Nature Unplugged podcast. You can find our episodes on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, basically wherever you want to get. It's kind of like how Matt said with his music. It's on all the digital podcast platforms. Be sure and check out natureunplugged.com for more information and resources. And that's where you can find more detailed information and the show notes, including Matt's upcoming shows, Spotify link, Bandcamp link, all those things. Well, thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Things change like seasons out of our control. If you think you should go, I will let you go. oh, oh.